Hey guys, my name is Renaz. In this video, I want to talk about leverage. And the thing that no one told me about leverage while I was in very expensive financial education, and what I now find is the most important thing about trading in general, and that I learned the hard way ultimately. But it was a very important lesson, and I'm glad that I learned it. And that is that leverage is very dangerous. And I don't mean in the sense everyone tells you that leverage is a double-edged sword. Here's what people I find fail to understand about leverage, and that is the very essence of how it works. And here's what I mean. It's very easy to get caught up in trying to make 2% a day or your trading rules per se, and this is your stop loss, and you're only risking $100 and what have you. Here is the problem I find that no one talks about, and not only that, it's quite difficult to find. Hey Jesse, how are you? Feel free to putting any comments or questions in the chat. And that is, for example, one Nasdaq futures contract, the mini is worth $164,000. One micro is therefore right now worth about 16,400 because it's 1/10 of that. And so I've been seeing a lot of people talking about like, oh, I've never made more than like 100 points or whatever. And that's kind of normal because if you think about the way people explain trading and leverage, I don't think it's properly explained. And here's what I mean. If one mini controls $164,000, one micro controls 16, that means if you're starting to trade with even a $5,000 account, one micro should be plenty for you. But I think it's so easy for people to get caught up in trying to make 100 points, 10 points, 3-to-1s, that you lose sight of the fact of how much money you're actually controlling. So the reason I learned this the hard way is, as you guys know, I love options. I love trading in general. Around a couple of months ago, everyone knew, or everyone kind of knows, that it's very hard to beat the S&P 500, which I had historically done. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to do about 2 micros, which is about the appropriate position size for my trading account at the time, to follow the S&P 500, because I thought it takes very little margin. I have plenty of liquidity. I can do whatever I want with, the rest of the cash, and I can do it for more options or to hedge my long positions or what have you. Long story short, we all know what happened with the markets the last couple of weeks. And I am so lucky and blessed that I do know how to trade really well, that I've rebounded most of the drawdown. But what I realized is most people have absolutely no idea what amount of money they're actually controlling. And I think that is very, very tunnel visioned when it comes to trading, because look at the big picture, guys. Right now, especially in these market conditions, you guys are moving. You're seeing the market moves 7, 10, 5, 6, 7% a day. It's moving hundreds of points. I've been trading one micro or 2 micros, and I've made a couple of $1,000s just off of that. And I think whenever people get so tunnel vision, because the barrier to entry for Forex is so small and to micro futures is so small, that you lose context of what is actually happening, and you get so caught up in the minutia of your target and your risk reward, that here's what I'm trying to say. In these market conditions, unless you have an exuberant amount of money, in my opinion, and we have to understand the origin of why these contracts and positions were created. Futures was created to hedge, right? That is the reason they were made. It was to hedge. Whenever we see portfolio managers using a lot of futures contracts, it is more often than not to offset their positions based on the enormous amount of money that they are hedging. And it's completely fine to use it speculatively, but we have to understand the context in which we are using speculatively for. Meaning, right now, one micro should make you a couple of $100s a day. And here's the other thing that I realized with people trading right now. I have so far loved my experience with Top Step Trader. They have been incredible. And in my opinion, moving forward, I feel like if you can risk other people's money, why would you want to risk your own, especially if you're a really good trader? if it costs you 100 something dollars to test your trading strategy and then trade someone else's money at a 20-80 split, then I see very little incentive to trade your own money. Again, I'm just getting started and playing with them. But here's what I realized with them being great people is that, in one video they're saying, try to make, bite-sized moves, never try to make, $1,000 a day. And then I thought, well, according to the leverage depicted, and if you can control, 10, 15 contracts, how would you not make at least $1,000 a day? But that's not the part that I was more startled by, but rather the 1,000 point drawdown. So then I emailed them and I was like, hey guys, actually, can I trade micros? Because with a micro contract during this time, you were easily making $1,000 a day because it was moving 700 points. So that times, $2, that is, $1,600 with one micro. And then they said, no, we don't really use micros for these accounts. You can apply for a swing trading account and then you can do the micros there. And then I thought, why would someone need to use 5-6 minis to make a couple $100 a day? I mean, how tunnel vision, for lack of a better term, do you have to be, and how small the time frames that you are only using, that you're using so many micros, and you're only trying to accomplish a couple $100 a day. And that's when I realized that it's so easy, I think, especially for traders or for a lot of the, I guess, the masculine side of us, to get so caught up in the small details that we lose context of the bigger time frame, literally and figuratively speaking. So what I want to bring to your attention about leverage is that right now, on these market conditions, based on my experience, and I've been trading for a really long time, nothing says a buy, sell, or hold recommendation. You could lose all of your money in your account. But right now, there is no reason to not go for 50, 100 points. But the thing is, going for 50 or 100 points with one micro or two, not with a standard, not even with a mini, because that is plenty for you to be able to capture that gain. And it also gives you a lot more room to be right, especially in these market conditions. Right now, the futures contract for the NASDAQ is about 8,200 points. With one micro, if we go back to the lows, which is about 66-ish hundred, but let's just call it 7,000 even. That is a 2,400 point move to retest the lows in current market conditions with one micro. I cannot even imagine trading a mini or a standard in these market conditions, not because it's not possible, but why would you want to put that level of stress on yourself? I guess ultimately what I'm saying is, it's important to understand not just leverage and not just the 2% rule and those things, but the mechanics and the reason of why it is made that way, and how much you're actually controlling. If you're starting to trade futures with a $2,000 account, there is very little reason to trade more than a micro or two, in my opinion, in current market conditions. Can you trade a mini in a platform like Sierra Futures and what have you? Yes, but understand that the level of proficiency that is required to trade a mini in these market conditions is not only very high, but it's completely unnecessary, especially to accomplish your income and trading goals. For me right now, my goals on the NASDAQ, no exaggeration, with a 20 plus something $1,000 account for this specific account, is still only one micro, because that is plenty to make a couple $100 a day with one micro on a 20 something dollar account. There is no reason to put that much stress or pressure trading Forex futures with a $3,000 account and trying to trade one mini. Not because you can't or you shouldn't, but because why would you? Why would you put that much level of stress with the market moving the way it's moving right now? With Forex, it's important to understand that you're trading fractions of a penny. And it's important to look at the bigger picture when you're trading fractions of a penny, is that Forex is designed to facilitate trade. It is McDonald's trying to figure out how to price sweet tea in the United States versus sweet tea in Japan versus sweet tea in China. And that is the primary role of Forex. And it is an amazing capability, tool, blessing that we can all trade these markets just like the big guys. But with great leverage and great power comes great responsibility. And I feel that because the level and the barrier to entry to trading is so low, which I think is fantastic, by the way, I think that's a great thing. I think with that comes the fact that people, it's easy to lose sight of the broader mechanics of the market and the broader perspective of the market because the barrier to entry is so low. And because we, as humans, only see the world through our level of perception, it's so easy to get caught up in our $500 account, $2,000 account, and then almost blame the market for moving 10, 15% a week. But remember, guys, like if you were going to flip a shoe and then you go to Nike or you go wherever, limited edition shoe, Reebok, even, Gary Vaynerchuk loves to talk about going into Marshalls, buying a Nike and then flipping it. If that shoe falls 30%, which is what we've seen the S&P do, you're not going to blow your mind, right? You're not going to lose sleep at night because it's 30% of a manageable situation that you kind of knew what you were getting into. And those kinds of swings are not all consuming when you're flipping a shoe. You have to kind of look at the market the same way. In a way, it's an amazing blessing ability to be able to control $165,000 with 500. Now, let's think about that for a second. If you're, and I love everyone at Sierra Futures, and they do minis and micros too. So I love everyone there. But contextually speaking, it's amazing that they give you the ability to trade a NASDAQ mini with $500 and you can open an account with 3,000. It is awesome. In my opinion, it is awesome. And if you're an amazing, incredible trader, and you just, like for me right now, I'm getting really good at spread trading because I want to capture both sides. And again, I am a very proficient trader. So that is a blessing, yes, but it is unnecessary. And it's important to understand the context in which we are coming into the markets and understand that our level of perception based on the information we have about the markets and based on our mental priorities, which is to make $200 a day for a lot of you guys. My goal is at 500 to 1,000. But based on those mental priorities, the moves you're going to see in the mini to capture your goals and priorities, if that is where they're at, is going to be very, very small in the broader context of the market and what's happening to the world. So all I'm saying is, there's nothing with the ease of leverage, you have the option, yes, but you don't have the obligation, and it is unnecessary stress. And I wish that before someone told me about the 2% rule and before someone told me about manage your stop loss, think about it. If you want to risk $100 a day with a mini, you're risking what, 4 points? 4 points? That can be the spread in these market conditions. Don't put that level of stress on yourself. It's not necessary. If you want to risk $100 with, hi Isabel, I'm doing a lot more videos about trading investing because now I feel like not only am I proficient, but like the world needs to know this because I think it's the democracy of knowledge. With one micro at $100, that's 50 points. You guys, 50 points right now, I think is a very appropriate stop loss for any futures market, for anything like that, because it's moving so rapidly. And you know what? Like, and I feel like instead of stressing out about the current market conditions, it's a breath of fresh air that we're in a situation where we can now examine the fact that a 50-point risk in one micro, I think it's awesome because honestly, my NASDAQ target has been consistently 200 points for like the last couple of weeks. And it has been an amazing 200 points. That has been so awesome and that's a minimum. It has been awesome to drive, the NASDAQ from 6,900 to 7,300. You guys, that's $1,000 in a day or in a couple of days. To drive it from, I think, 2 Wednesdays ago, from 79, 75-ish down to like 73, 75, which is the quarter that it was slated to come to. And that was very easily seen with the quarter series and with the market conditions. That's a couple of $1,000s a day with one micro, a week, excuse me, with one micro. Like, and the peace of mind that comes with the fact that I am ready. I honestly, a pullback to 6,900 would be amazing. And in that point, I would go in with personally 3 or 4 micros because I have captured those round trips with one micro back and forth and back and forth. So then I have room for the market to fall another 1,000 points. And in my opinion, guys, we need to be thinking about these market conditions in 1,000 point increments because that's how much they're, the NASDAQ this past week opened up at 7,400 ish. It went down to, it went all the way up to 83. In my opinion, it's valuing the quarters really well. You don't need a mini, you don't need a standard. And the blessing in that is when it comes back down to those levels, as I capture those. So my strategy has been this week or these past few weeks has been getting in at the lows, capturing a couple of 100 points, getting in at incrementally higher targets because the zones are becoming wider, and then cashing out and then getting back in at a lower point to which I cashed out on, or and then any. So for example, I get in at 7,000, I get out at 8,000, it pulls back to 7,400. I get back out at 7,900, or yeah, it pulls back to 7,300. I get back out at 7,900. So now I have all this cushion to afford to get back into at new lows because I had made that money back and forth and I had made that range multiple times now. So then whenever I get back in and it draws down, let's say to new lows, let's say it comes down to 5,000, right? So let's say that it comes down 3,000 points from where it's at right now. And I get back in at 7,000. I am not that stressed out about at that point, let's say $1,000, $2,000 drawdown because I had made that so many times in that range. And then I can go in long for the long haul and do it appropriately. So in my opinion, where it's pretty much impossible not to lose the principle of what I had been playing with in this futures account from that perspective. Getting, in my opinion, right now caught up in a 2-point move or a 5-point move on the NASDAQ, you're gonna get slaughtered. Unless which honestly I've been able to do that and I've done that live. But the proficiency in that, not only is it extremely high, but it's not necessary. And that's what I want to get to. Overall, my point is when it comes to leverage, understand the context in which you are using that leverage, right? Because when you understand the context, I think that gives you so much more peace of mind. Knowledge is power. Well, applied knowledge is power. And right now, peace of mind, I think, should be on the top of everyone's list. And there's no need in these market conditions to get caught up in a mini. Even if you had a 6-figure account, like why? It's just not necessary. Especially when we're testing the highs and the lows back and forth. Save that micro, save those 5 contracts to when it comes down to new lows. Then you know what? And again, it's not a buy sell hold recommendation, but there's no need to right now get lost in 10, 15-point moves in the 5, 10, 15-minute time frames. Because looking at the bigger picture, there's so much more opportunity out there that is so much less stressful. And so with that said, guys, in my opinion, no matter what you're trading, understand the leverage and I don't mean 20 points per 1 point. Understand where it comes from. Understand how many decimal points to the left is of a penny, because you cannot be mad at the markets or at yourself for having a 5% drawdown when you're betting on one fraction of a penny move. I mean, especially in these market conditions. And it's okay that you guys have done that, because I feel like in my experience, no one has told you not to, and no one has told you any other way, right? Even looking at, trading agencies and trading firms that are helping people trade with their money, and it is their money, so it's in their best interest to really help. Yes, I agree. Thank you so much, Avanhud. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, they themselves have the best interest for their traders to make money because it's their money that they're making. But it's like at some point, someone or the universe agreed, the universe, that the people agreed that it's okay to trade, you know, a 200,000 value contract, and it's not okay. But if you're new to the market, understand that you're trading 2,000, $163,000 with 500, right? And so understanding it from that perspective can help you avoid blowing your account because it's so much bigger than our level of perception. And for those of you guys that know me in the markets, and it is a Market Wizards, Oracle of Omaha, Master of the Universe, because it's a reminder that we're everything and nothing at the same time. The markets are an extension of ourselves. It is every fear, phobia, anxiety, hope, dream depicted in the candlesticks. These energies, these emotions are volatile. People are volatile right now. And it's easy to lose sight of that whenever you're looking at a 5 minute time frame and you're trying to make 5 points, not realizing that it's moving 200 points, right? So with that being said, guys, all I'm saying is understand the mechanics behind whatever it is that you're trading, the origin and what it's supposed to facilitate, and then that'll give you a better perspective. And honest to God, it would have avoided me blowing accounts getting started as a student, 5, 6 years ago, if I just understood that. Because if your goal is to make a couple of $100 a day, I promise you, you do not need a mini even. Right now, a micro should do it. And honestly, why not go for 100, 200 points on 2 or 3 minutes? It's easier, So with that being said, guys, I hope this video was helpful. I will probably do a much more comprehensive educational video on leverage and understanding why it's important to understand that mechanics of leverage beyond one point is $20 or $2. Yeah, but there's so much more that goes into that. And it's important to understand the purposes of why certain things are made and done, because then we have context as to what it is that we've been playing with. So with that being said, Isabel, thank you so much for being here from my other channel. And I will be teaching a lot more, and I've been talking to a lot of amazing instructors. And my goal is with Capital Endeavor and my next